bought the captaincy or wanted the captaincy. It was sort of thrust upon him a little bit. So it took him a while to embrace it and get used to it and really make a fist of it. But once he got it all together, Australia had a terrific record under his leadership.
Australia have half their side out, only 130 runs on the board. What a response from Allan Border. Nice shot away through the covers.
Allan Border was at first a reluctant captain of Australia.
If I had a chance to sort of do it all again, there wouldn't be too much I'd change, except my approach to captaincy. I think, given the opportunity, it's the day after Kim Hughes resigns, 1984, I'm announced as the Australian captain, I'd go for it. A lot more positive fashion than I subsequently did.
Well, nothing is going right for the Australians.
Australia's record in Border's first 2 years of captaincy was disastrous, with series losses to the West Indies, England, New Zealand, and England again.
You're really only as good as your side, to be fair, because if you haven't got the ammo or if you haven't got the quality, you can only do what you can, and you can battle hard, as Australians always did and always do. It sort of seems to be inbred with them, and they'll give you a game. But even so, if you're a captain, you're there and you haven't got a Shane Warne, a Glenn McGrath, Gilchrist, Ponting, Border, Wall, if you haven't got those sort of people in your side, match winners, then it's very difficult as a captain to really get through.
At a time when there wasn't much else happening in Australian cricket, where Border often found himself in positions where he was last and only man standing, with wickets falling all around him, and these are the kind of innings that would then go and ingrain themselves in the memories of young Wars and Pontings and batsmen for generations to come, who would then go and form a golden era of Australian cricket. Just some of the most, again, redoubtable batting that you could possibly hope to see.
The appointment of former captain Bob Simpson as coach was a turning point. Australia drew a test series with India, then pulled off an unlikely victory in the 1987 World Cup.
We had a very young side together. Bob Simpson had taken over coaching, and we'd targeted certain areas of our game, be it our fielding in particular, our fielding drills, and our fitness levels had improved as a result of doing these drills. And our cricket started to improve, particularly in the one-day arena, where we did actually sit down and start to have specific tactics for a cricket match. We'd never done it before, which is quite extraordinary, but we had a lot of talented players through that, particularly the early 80s, so we just went out there and played. That's how we approached one-day cricket. Yeah, it was a real, catalyst for the Australian side starting to improve. We won this World Cup against all the odds. A very young side, and it was from that point we started to improve gradually in other areas, particularly Test match cricket.
Border, he talked to them, cajoled them, drove them, and led by example.
In 1987-88, Border won his first Test series as captain, also making his highest score of 205 and becoming Australia's highest run scorer.
As a captain, I was probably still going through this negative thing. I was probably a lot friendlier to opposition members. I'd formed a pretty good friendship with David Gower, Ian Botham, Mike Gadding, and a lot of the English guys. We got on well. We had traditional after a day's play sort of drinking sessions. So I was probably a friendlier sort of a bloke compared to going back to England in 1989. It was a bit of a watershed for me. The side had shown glimpses of turning things around. We had a few young players who were just starting to make their debuts for Australia, and I could see that there was a lot of potential, but I needed to change my own captaincy. I had to be a little bit harder, had to sort of go into the games with a better preparation, plan things out a lot better. And I think the captain in 1989 had a lot harder edge.
In 1989, Border took a team to England that was dismissed by some tabloids as Australia's worst ever touring team.
Oh, what a good delivery. 3-0.
Under Border's leadership, the Ashes came back to Australia.
Border's first instruction was, OK, we'll fraternise, but no more barbecues and having a few drinks. And he singled out David Gower, who was captain at the time.
The big difference was Allan Border's approach to the two series, and he's made no bones about it. He felt he was a little bit soft in 85 and a bit too friendly, which is his natural nature. Come back in 89, and he made a simple point of talking to no one on our side, except to say heads or tails at the start of a game. I mean, I used to get on very well with him. I still do, actually, now we've had that little hiatus. I hardly had a civil word from him until August on that tour, by which time they basically won the Ashes.
Between 1989 and 1992, Allan Border's Australians enjoyed a fruitful period in international cricket. The captain himself didn't score a century for 61 straight innings, but such was his consistency that his average never dropped below 50.
There was always contributions. I mean, you know, if you're still keeping your average above 50 over a 3-year period and not getting 100.
Allan Border throughout that period was an amazing, gritty little batsman. I think they nicknamed him the Aussie Battler, the little Aussie Battler, because he wasn't the most graceful player, nuggety, you know, short stature, but just tough, you know, a real tough little fighter. Sold his wicket quite dearly, and he would enter into it. He'd enter into it out there. He'd have some battles with you.
In the fourth test of the 1993 Ashes series, Allan Border and Steve Waugh had put on 292 runs.
4 more.
Australia was in an impregnable position, but Border decided he would bat on the next day.
I think he's prepared to say that he was conservative, but with a very good reason. You don't go out there and be flamboyant if everyone's been knocking hell out of you for the last 8 years.
No, I was really ramming home an advantage and turning the screws from, and maybe it was a byproduct of, you know, early hammerings from England.
I think although Border may not appear as exciting as captain when you compare him with some of the others who have been, he did the job at the time, and he did it in exactly the way it should have been done at that time.
This Australian skipper was not a motivator or a speechmaker. He led by example, and he put a high premium on loyalty.
I thought he was a fine captain. He had the respect of the players, you see. They worshipped Allan Border and they'd do anything for him, and that's the sign of a great captain, when you're getting the respect.